For almost 30 years, one band from Chicago has been carving out this totally unique space in the punk rock world, mixing these super catchy melodies with some seriously dark, poetic lyrics. So today, we're going to dive deep into the long, influential, and often turbulent journey of Alkaline Trio.
And here they are, absolute veterans, still killing it on stage. Since way back in '96, Alkaline Trio has been known for their signature blend of punk, pop punk, and emo. But really, what always made them stand out from the pack were those macabre lyrics.
So here's our game plan. We're going to trace their story all the way from their underground beginnings through their big mainstream break, their return to their indie roots, and right on up to their constantly evolving present.
All right, let's rewind the clock. We're going back to where it all started, the raw, buzzing Chicago punk scene of the mid-90s.
You know, at a time when a lot of their peers were singing about politics or skateboarding, Alkaline Trio was writing songs that just felt different. They took the clever wordplay you'd hear in a band like Jawbreaker and smashed it together with the dark horror movie imagery of the Misfits. What came out was this sound that tapped into a really personal, kind of gloomy angst that was just simmering under the surface in the late 90s.
So those first few years, man, they were a total whirlwind of change. It was like a trial by fire that would end up forging the core sound that fans would really fall in love with.
The band got its start in '96 with Matt Skiba, Rob Doran, and Glenn Porter. But the really crucial moment came just 1 year later when Dan Andriano took over on bass. Now, this wasn't just some lineup shuffle. No, this was a game changer. It created the band's signature dynamic because Andriano became a co-lead vocalist and a totally essential songwriting partner for Skiba.
They got signed to the indie label Asian Man Records and just started cranking out these raw, super powerful records. Albums like God Damn It and Maybe I'll Catch Fire were just foundational. They earned them this incredibly passionate, almost cult-like following of people who really connected with that honest, dark songwriting.
Right, and that passionate following? Well, it was about to go absolutely nuclear.
So in 2001, the band makes a move to Vagrant Records and drops From Here to Infirmary. They had another new drummer, Mike Fellamlee, and this album was a huge leap forward in terms of production and just how catchy it was, but without losing that core identity that made them special. And this, right here, was the moment everything changed. The singles Stupid Kid and Private Eye became these massive punk anthems. They were getting major airplay and suddenly exposed the band to a whole world of people outside the underground scene.
And you can see it in the sales. From Here to Infirmary was their first record to hit six-figure sales and actually make a real dent on the Billboard charts. It was obvious they had tapped into something huge.
And then, in 2003, it happened. The final piece of the puzzle just clicked into place. Drummer Derek Grant joined, and this trio, Skiba, Andriano, and Grant, would become the band's longest-lasting and most beloved lineup, kicking things off with the fan-favorite album, Good Morning. So, with this classic lineup locked in and their popularity just skyrocketing, the band stepped into a totally new chapter, one of big-time experimentation and, eventually, a bit of reflection.
Albums like 2005's Crimson and 2008's Agony and Irony, which actually came out on the major label Epic Records, saw the band really expanding their sound. Think more polished production, more layers, extra instruments. It was a bigger, more ambitious version of the trio.
But, after that whole major label experience, they felt this pull, this need to get back to their roots. For their next album, This Addiction, the themes got super personal again. Like Matt Skiba said, the title track uses addiction as this really powerful and painful metaphor for love.
And what they did next was incredibly gutsy. They walked away from the major label system, started their own label called Heart and Skull with Epitaph, and went right back to Chicago to record with their original producer. It was a conscious choice to return to their do-it-yourself beginnings.
So, did this risky move pay off? You better believe it. Against all odds, their self-release album, This Addiction, became the highest charting record of their entire career, debuting at number 11 on the Billboard 200. Just incredible. Then, to celebrate 15 years as a band in 2011, they put out Damnesia. It was filled with these intimate, kind of semi-unplugged versions of their classic songs. And what it really did was prove that underneath all the speed and distortion, these were just incredibly well-written songs at their core.
And that brings us pretty much up to today, a period that's been defined by side projects, incredible longevity, and honestly, a surprising amount of very recent change.
And you can't talk about this era without mentioning something huge. For 7 years, Matt Skiba took on this high-profile gig, stepping in as the guitarist and singer for another legendary band, Blink-182, and even recorded 2 full albums with them.
This timeline of the band's history really says it all, doesn't it? Just look at those long, solid, unbroken lines for Matt Skiba and Andriano. They are the constant creative core, while that drummer seat, well, that has seen a few changes over the years.
And man, has that drum seat been a revolving door lately. In June 2023, the legendary Derek Grant stepped down after 22 years. Atom Willard was quickly announced as the new guy, but then, after only a short run, he announced his own departure in early 2024, leaving the drum throne open once again.
So it all comes down to this one question, right? Through all the breakups, the personal struggles, the huge side projects, and that revolving door of drummers, the creative heart of Alkaline Trio, that songwriting partnership between Matt Skiba and Dan Andriano, just keeps beating. So what is it? What's the secret sauce in their unique chemistry that's allowed them to keep going and keep creating for nearly 30 years?